It is really warm today, surprisingly so. Nope, don't do that. Confusing myself. I am cabling without a cable needle, and I'm on a cable row, so you're going to see a lot of it on this round. If you're wondering what the hell I'm doing, that's what I'm doing. Give you a view of what the cables look like on this thing. The rows with the cables definitely take the longest. It is about lunchtime on Sunday in Munich. And it was supposed to be rainy today, but actually, right now, the sun is out. It's just cloudy, it's not raining. So I'm kind of tempted to to suggest we go to the beer garden for lunch. I haven't been to a beer garden here in 6 months. They all locked down like last November. And they've only just opened in the last week because the infection numbers have been under 100 for long enough. So I went for a long bike ride yesterday around Munich, and literally, like, the restaurants are not open for indoor dining yet, but if they have outdoor dining, every place yesterday that had outdoor seating was full, or as full as they could allow with distancing. So we have a local beer garden not far from our place. I'm very tempted. Red seemed to think they might require a fast test, a Chanel test, actually, to get in, but I'm not sure. But it'd be really nice to have beer and schnitzel in the sunshine today. After 6 months of being locked in the house. With the ladder bit here. It's a fairly simple pattern. This vest is called Dr. G's. Oh, I've got the wrong. Yeah, Dr. G's Memory Vest is the name of the pattern, and it is designed by Kristen Kapoor, I believe is her name. It's on Ravelry, Dr. G's Memory Vest, and it was designed for someone who suffered from Alzheimer's, and so to buy the pattern, you actually donate to Alzheimer's research, and then send the designer a screenshot of your receipt, and then you get the pattern, which I thought was a very sweet thing to do. It's only got sort of 3 different motifs. There's that sort of a ladder there, which is just knits and pearls up this. That's what I'm calling it, the ladder. There's these sort of there's a column of these rope cables, and then there's the central tree. Hey, Mass Bandit, how are you today? Good to see you. So the ladder and the cables are an 8-row repeat, and the tree is a 10-row repeat. But actually, they're not that complicated. So as long as I remember where I am on the tree, I can kind of base everything else off of that. So this is this central sort of tree motif here. So I need to move the branch. The branches go to the center, converge on the center. And then the trunk actually gets slipped every other row, which is why it sort of stands out a bit on top. What are you working on today, Bandit? Some squares for a give back blanket project for a friend. Oh, that's so nice. Are you doing, diagonal garter squares, or are you doing different designs on them? I think one of the things non-knitters don't realize is doing a group project like that is actually really hard because everyone's tension is different. So if we all cast on and knit the same number of stitches and rows, everyone's square will be a slightly different size, which actually makes it quite difficult to sew together into something. And you can block things out to an extent, but trying out some crochet and knitting patterns. That's nice. Yeah, I've done a number of sort of those kind of projects for friends and for charity, and usually they'll give you a size, but it can be real tricky to get them to be the same size, especially if you're doing cables or designs that sort of pull in and in ways that you can't predict. Some tatting later. Ooh, see, tatting's something I've never gotten into. It's really cool though. And I fear as my eyes get worse as I get older, I've probably missed my window on being able to do tatting. Tatting is very fine usually. I shall stick to my DK weight wool. Okay, there's one round done. Back at the blue. Ah, thanks for the follow there, Mind Your KNP. Nice name. I should spread it out so you can see actually. So this is... So the each round, it's got stocking stitch under the arms, so under the armholes, and then it's just the ladder bracketed by two of the cables with the tree in the middle, and each motif is separated by a column of twisted stitches, which you can see kind of makes them stand out a little bit. So I measured yesterday, and it had twisted rib at the bottom as well, which is why the ribbing might look slightly odd. It's each of the knit stitches is knit through the back to twist it as well. Mindy, nice. Mindy, hello. Mass Bandit, you're in your 50s and still do it. Wow, and your great grandma did it by touch. That's amazing. Wow. I think I just need to get reading glasses. Oh, of course, mind your knit and that's a great. I mean, well, it helps that you're on a knitting stream, so I had the context there, but so here's one of those columns of twisted stitches. So rather than knit it through the front like normally, I'm just going to knit it through the back, and that twists it and just makes it sort of a little more distinctive. This is an even numbered row, so on the cables, I just knit across. There's a purl stitch between the two cables. There's another of those twisted stitches. And now for the ladder section, I'm just going to knit across as well. Twisted stitch. You're knitting a wool linen blend. Oh yeah, linen. Linen is you're saying gets in the air and hurts your throat. I imagine that. I know linen knitting with it can actually be quite rough on your hands. You know, it softens up after you wash it, I think, a bit, but still, it's quite rough to knit with. And here is the central tree motif. So I'm starting a new branch, and then when I get to the center, that branch is complete. The one I found the worst for that was, you don't see it much these days, but there was a fad back in Australia many years ago for recycled sari silk that you could knit with. But that was super rough, I remember, on your hands as well. Like the one time I tried using it, I just, you know, literally would abrade your hands. And I'm sure you would soften up beautifully once it was knitted, but yeah, definitely. I've not knitted, I think I've only done 1 or 2 projects with linen. I know a friend knitted her wedding dress with linen. And the other thing you got to worry with linen is it'll grow, you know, depending on what you're making out of it. Like, she was very careful to not, like, hang the dress until she wore it. But still, as she wore it, it kept continuing to stretch and grow because the weight of it would pull it down. I remember she ended up sewing it to her slip underneath to keep it from just like, shoo. I seem to remember the one I did was a blend. It was like a wool linen blend, as you suggested. It was a little dress for my niece. Too little linen to grow too much, that's good. Well, I am knitting with Joe Sharp Silk Road DK Tweed, which is a wool with a tiny bit of silk and an even tinier bit of cashmere. But it's very squishy and very soft, and it reminds me of teddy bears and peanut butter cookies, to tell you the truth, looking at it. It's going to be nice and soft and warm. The Malabrigo was a shawl. Oh, okay. I am, truth be told, I am not a shawl knitter. I would never wear one. So I've not knitted any. I have knitted a small number of triangular scarves. They were triangular scarves. They were not shawls. But, yeah, that's as close as I've come. So there's the yellow. That means I'm at the other underarm. So half of the round done. I wear them on the bus against the AC or when I travel. Yeah. I've knitted some very big scarves that I suppose one could, if one wanted to make a case for them being a shawl, could, but they were just a big scarf. Clap OT was one I did, which was a Knitty, free pattern on Knitty back in the day, but it's, you know, you knit it sort of on the bias, and once you get to a certain point, you start laddering stitches down. And so you get these sort of cool bits where it's just horizontal bars. And I knitted that to wear to a wedding once out of some Noro, which was beautiful, you know, self-painted yarns. And I made it really big, quite big and rectangular. But if you put a gun to my head, I might say it's a shawl, and I wore it that way, but yeah, for a while everybody was knitting clap OT there that year. center of the tree. Just so you can see what I'm talking about when I talk about the tree. Where are you based, Mindy? Hawaii. Oh, wow. You are up either very late or very early, aren't you? I am in Munich, Germany, and it is about 1 in the afternoon on Sunday here. 1 a.m. there, so you're up very late. I've been to Hawaii once. My husband and I went many years ago just to Honolulu and around. That's Oahu, right? Yeah. So we, did the touristy things. Very nice. I'd like to go back and see some of the other islands someday. Okay, that round is done. All right, move my stitch marker, my row marker. One thing we did that was not a typical tourist thing to do in Hawaii is I dragged my husband to some fabric stores because I'd been told that there are some pretty cool, pretty good fabric stores in Honolulu. And I can't remember the name of it. I went to one and bought I actually think I have some of it here. I still haven't used it all. Brought some with me for sewing. Obviously Hawaiian prints, but also I remember getting a really nice they had some really nice Japanese prints there, some really unusual things that at the time I couldn't easily find back in Sydney where I was living. So I am technically on a cable row, but the rope cables here aren't crossing it. They cross every 4th row. So they're not crossing on this row. But there will be a cable happening on the central tree motif. Down to 1 yarn store. Oh, that sucks. Yeah, well, probably, it's the same problem we had in a lot of Australia, like in Brisbane. It doesn't get cold enough really to justify wearing really warm knits. All right, here I'm on the tree. So I've got a branch here, a little knit stitch, and a branch here, a little knit stitch. And what I'm going to do is every other round, they're going to start converging towards the center. So that means it's a cable, really. So I need to actually, this knit stitch is going to swap places with this purl stitch. So I could use a cable needle for that, but I am not going to bother. I am just going to rearrange them on the needle. So then, that's all cabling is. For those of you who haven't cabled or who are intimidated by cables, all cabling is rearranging the stitches before you knit them. And then the center tree trunk is slipped every other row. So instead of knitting it, I'm actually just going to slip it unworked. And that makes it bigger, so for a decorative effect. Okay, now I need to move the other tree branch. Oh yeah, I hate cable needles. Never cable needles. All right, so again, I've got a stocking stitch here and a purl stitch here. And if you don't know the difference, purl stitches have the bump at the bottom. So if you can't remember, look for the bump, the horizontal bar at the bottom. So what I want to do is I actually want to knit the knit stitch and then the purl. So I'm going to grab the knit through the front. I'm going to slide them off, and I'm just going to rearrange them. So the knit stitch, and then the purl. And so each of those are now starting to converge towards the center. You can use a cable needle if you want to, but it would have taken me so much longer. Pick up a cable needle, slide it. It's awkward, pain, don't need to do it. Twisted stitch. Should actually measure this and see how long it is. I know how long I'm aiming for. Aiming for about 15 inches before I start the armholes. He's got a long torso, so I went and measured against some garments, existing garments, to see. Nothing worse than knitting something for someone is too short or it rides up when they wear it. You have to wear a mask. The shedding. Yeah. I get dust allergies. And so if you go back, you can't see them on Twitch, but on my YouTube channel, I've archived my previous streams. Back at like New Year's, I reclaimed the wool from a long dormant Fair Isle sweater. Like we're talking like 7, 8 years. And frogged it. And I skeined it up. And I washed it, and honestly, it was doing that. It was so dusty, and it had been in a bag. Like I didn't think it would be dusty, but it gave me an allergy attack. Between both the fibers shedding and the dust, I had to wear a mask for doing that. Twisted stitch. Yeah, I suppose it helps right now that everyone's got masks at home, right? Oh, this is going so much faster on the Addies. I did the first part of the garment with my old Denise interchangeables, and they kept breaking and giving me heart attacks. And I finally chucked them in the bin because they were too old and the joints were too weak and gone. You threw it in the freezer. I've heard that trick for like with Angora, anything that's very fluffy. I suppose with mohair as well, to put it in the freezer. I'm not sure why that's supposed to work, but that was, one of the hacks we used to suggest to people when I worked in a knitting shop many years ago. All right, time to do those little one-stitch cables again on the tree. All right, wool to the back, slip, wool to the front for the trunk. Oh, I want to try and try something on Twitch here. I bought a ducky pad, which is this little programmable macro keyboard. And it comes with a profile for Twitch, and I don't actually know what these buttons do. So let's see what happens when I click lull. Nothing happened. Why did nothing happen? Oh, it just types lull. That's literally all it does. That's random. How about... Oh, I see. And then that makes little things. All right. And then I have to hit enter. Got it. All right. So kappa. Now I get it. That's stupid. I'm never going to do that. I don't know all the little Twitch memes and Twitch icons. It came programmed with a bunch of them. And yeah, I don't know what they are. What is that one? That is Meet H. No, that's not one of the ones that's programmed in. There you go. Go back to here and try one of my other. So I've got it set up for OBS as well. So if I do this. Well, it worked to trigger it, but it's not triggering it to come back. What is wrong? Sometimes the key presses in OBS are not working. Let's try again. I don't know, maybe it's my OBS shortcuts. I set up shortcuts in OBS and maybe it doesn't like them for some reason. I'll have to investigate. I have to do some bug fixing there. It's the one you used to say, woo. Well, that's a useful one then. Yep, all the cabling. So much cabling. I'll get to the end of this round here and then I will measure it. Someone asked me yesterday how long it had taken me to knit this much, and I'm like, I'm not sure. It's a thick wool, which you'd think would go faster, but because of all the cabling, it doesn't so much. I like cables though. Okay, that's the end of that round. Move my stitch marker. Okay, let's see how long it is. It's not 15 inches yet, I know that. It's about 11 and a half, maybe 12 at most. A few more to go. And this is even numbered rows, so again, no cables, but the next round is going to have all the cables. Just checking a message. Two years to finish a pair of socks? Good grief. Well, I imagine they spent a lot of time in the naughty corner. Like that jumper that I frogged that sat there for 7 years. I hate it when they have mistakes. It's like little bits of vegetable matter in here though. Every now and then I feel something pokey in the wool. I still feel it. A little stick or something. Had to ask the designer for help. You know, you have a problem with a pattern, you go to Ravelry and you see that the pattern has, 8 pages of comments and you're like, crap. I know that there's going to be a mistake there. the round done. Shoulder's getting sore. Has a lot of twisted stitches, that project. Yeah, it is not easy on the hands. That ribbing at the bottom was slow and painstaking. I imagine the twisted stitches on the linen will also help try and counter it growing on you. Won't perhaps stretch quite as much. I don't know. Oh gosh, I did a linen thing. I'm just remembering I got a skein of like a, might have even been like 100% linen. Someone gave me a skein of it as a gift or something like that. And I made like a shopping bag out of it. Someone showed me a pattern for like a, like a knit bag basically that you knit to carry shopping in. And yeah, I remember it being absolutely murder on my hands. I wonder where that shopping bag is. I must have put it into storage when we moved from Australia. Too many shawls on the, yes, how many shawls? I shouldn't ask that. Anyone who knits shawls, asking them how many shawls is too many shawls is a pointless exercise. You all have shawl fever. Okay, that round is done. That means we are now on the cable round. Limber up, because the cable round is a bit strenuous. I'm wearing cables actually. I'm wearing another of mine. This one is I believe this is the Blackberry cardigan. So it's got some very pretty cables all down the sleeves in the front, and then it's got this blackberry stitch, sort of a bubbly stitch as well. Okay. Cable row. Okay. First cables are the rope cables. 2 honeymoon shawls. One is repetitive, the other is a Stephen West. 1 birthday shawl, birthday shawl. Wow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, lace. See, I don't do much lace either. I've knitted a few bits of lace. Only one sort of proper lace thing. I'm not a... Yeah, shawls and lace, not really me. But chunky cables. And here we go. We're going to do crossing these rope cables. I like Fair Island color work. I like cables. Yeah, lace has just never been too much. I have a couple. Look, I say that I actually own. I bought the pattern for a big lace shawl, but it's got like a dragon on it. Someday I'll make that. I even have the wool for it. Someday I'll make that. Oh, lace weight. Yeah, that's fair enough. Okay. Yeah, I've also got a pattern, one I've been wanting to do for a long time, which is, oh, and here's the ladder. So just purl across the ladder. It's a big round shawl with a map of the night sky, but it was done for the northern hemisphere. So I've long wanted to convert it to be one for the southern hemisphere. It's possible the designer's already redone it by now. That's the only other. So yeah, I like a challenge. I think it's called, yeah, it might be Constellation, something like that. I think you might even put beads on it for each of the stars. A beaded lace shawl. What am I thinking? Okay, make sure I'm crossing the cables correctly. So I was saying yesterday, I'll do the cable without cable needle technique for anything up to say, well, look, you know, six stitches I could probably do. You get to 8, it gets a little trickier. Can be done. But also, it helps if you have a grabby yarn, you're fine. If it was like a fine yarn, I would probably use the cable needle because I would be worried, or a slippery yarn, I would be worried that I would drop it. All right, and now we're at the tree branch again, and so this is just a 1 stitch or 2 stitch cable. It's really just a traveling stitch, not so much a cable. Another pokey thing in my wool. Come on, Joe Sharp. Okay, and then the central tree trunk is wool to the back, slip, wool to the front. Okay, there's my 2 stitch tree branch. So this time I'm going to grab the stocking stitch from the front, slide them off, and reorganize. Might knit this project in a plastic bag. Okay, back to another cable. So many cables this round. There's the ladder, purl across the ladder. Is it an allergy, do you think? Like, could you take an antihistamine? Would that help maybe? More cables. Yeah, I take an allergy Zyrtec every day too, pretty much. Due to VOG? Is that a typo or what does that refer to? Volcanic ash. Oh, wow. Oh, like volcanic fog. That's scary but cool. Oh, wow. I did not know that. Wreaks havoc on allergies, I bet. All right, half the cable round done. I think just switching between the knits and purls, you know, makes me go slower. If I were just stocking stitch, this thing would have been flying. Could have been up to the armholes by now easily. But between cables and twisted stitches and just lots of motif switching adds a lot of extra movement to each bit. Cables crossed. Yeah, switching too much between knits and purls. Okay, purl across the ladder. More cables. I mean, I don't think I've miscrossed any cables on this yet. cursed myself, haven't I? Knock on wood. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 on each side, so 16 cables for the cable round, plus the central tree branches. So there's 20 cables on the cable rounds that you have to do. That's a lot. Plus twisted stitches. Okay, there's that traveling tree branch cable here. Central tree trunk. Wool goes to the back, slip, wool goes to the front. Okay, and then there's the other tree branch. Goes across to the right. Okay, there's the ladder, purl across the ladder. Last one. Okay, there's that round done. I might now switch over and work on my socks for a few rounds. There we go. Start by untwisting the wool. Zauber ball gets very, very twisty. So this is a very simple little stitch pattern, which is a broken rib. So every other round is just straight knitting, which is what I'm doing right now. And obviously I'm only doing the stitch pattern on the top of the foot. You always leave the bottom of a foot plain. Otherwise you'd be walking across sort of knobbly bits. Usually you don't do any patterning on the bottom of the foot. But every other row on the top here you do a 2x2 rib. But you alternate it, which is why you get this sort of raised up pattern. I actually cast it on for a different pattern a few weeks ago, doing a traditional cuff down sock with an undulating rib. And the problem was it actually competed with the strong, obviously this yarn is self-striping and it has a really strong contrasty stripes with the acid green and the gray and the black. And the undulating rib was just conflicting too much with it. So I frogged it and I've started over and I picked something with a smaller pattern that wouldn't compete as much. And I like it that it breaks it up a little bit on the top. You get the sort of bits where the little purl stitches show through. But you can obviously still see the self-striping. So this is the round where I need to do the 2x2 rib. But I alternate where I started last time. So last time I did knit 2, purl 2. This time I'm going to do purl 2, knit 2. And just make sure the first couple stitches on each needle, since I'm doing magic glue, I pull the first couple a little extra tight, just because that keeps you from getting a ladder down the side of the sock where the front and the back join. Oops, what am I doing? I switched to stocking stitch accidentally. No, you're doing ribbing. have to do this one during the day because my eyes, the black yarn, I honestly find it really difficult to see the black. I don't know if they use that, oops, Vanta black or whatever, but it's incredibly hard to see at night. Okay, and then that means this is a plain row across the top of the foot now. I'll just do a couple more rows, and I think I'll call it a day. We'll get out while the sun's still out. Plus, I'm going to need to start the heel on this thing pretty soon. So thinking of doing it, you can do a traditional heel gusset from the toe up. Basically, you've got to increase to create the gusset. That'll require some maths and looking up of patterns, and that's not the most exciting thing to do on the stream, really. Just another ribbing row. Okay, I'm getting hungry, so I think I need to go have some lunch. It's been lovely chatting with you, Mindy. If you're still around, hope you get some sleep. Hope you sort out the issues with your linen. I am going to sign off for the day and try and get out in the sunshine while the sun is shining here in Munich. Thanks for joining me. I do archive my streams. Oh, hey, Stuff Allison made. Nice to see you. Hello. I do archive the streams over on my YouTube channel. So for those of you who don't know it, that is my YouTube channel. So they're up on Twitch for 2 weeks and then they go over there most of the time when I remember. So you can watch previous ones there. But yeah, I will be back next weekend, if not before. Probably not until the weekend. But I hope you enjoy your week and thanks for joining me today. Let's see if the stop button works. Let's try that. No, it didn't work. Let's hit it. Just